Welcome back to the channel, and today I have some frosty news for you. That's right, winter is coming to Battlefield 6, and it looks like developers are looking to deck those balls because we have a bunch of nerfs inbound to some of my favorite weapons and probably some of yours. We're also getting a new battle pass with the winter offensive, right, similar to the California Resistance. We're getting a new limited time map and game mode, reworking essentially Empire State. They're working on a ton of hit registration and audio fixes and many more bugs and other game updates. So let's get out of the cold and let's dive in. So starting off with the bad news first, there's a handful of weapons that are going to be getting a nerf. I'm talking about the M250, the NVO228, the RPKM, the SG553R, and even the newly introduced SOAR 300SC. All of these weapons are going to be less effective at range. They're going to be increasing recoil variation, which to me just says, hey, they're adding some bloom, probably past around 100 meters, maybe even sooner, and we'll find that out in the testing once the patch releases. Now there are a couple of buffs coming, but these are pretty minor. The L110 and the M123K, the cost to add the 200 round magazine is going down from 55 down to 50. Now I don't know if that's going to make enough of a difference, but they also remove the penalty to ADS movement, so maybe that's enough to make that more viable for you. Oh, and were you a mini scout enjoyer? Well, they're going to be increasing the minimum time between shots by 100 milliseconds to quote-unquote improve pacing, but in reality to nerf the ability to have very fast follow-up shots. Do with that information what you will. Now, I know that you've been naughty doing all those XP farmers, but it's time to get merry because we're getting a new map with Empire State Ice Lock Edition. They're essentially just going to add some snow, some Christmas trees, some holiday decorations just to get players into the festive spirit. They're also adding event modes to Domination, Conquest, and Gauntlet, where they're going to introduce a new mechanic called Freeze, which is essentially going to slow players down. And for those of you that really enjoy Portal or customizing maps, Ice Lock will be making it into Portal at the same time, so you can modify to your heart's content. Now moving on to something that actually matters, they're going to be making improvements to hit registration. That's right, these updates are coming in this patch, right? So they're refining weapon handling, right? So they're trying to get accuracy to be more consistent. They're enhancing close range visibility, right? So that'll make some of that interaction a little bit better. So it'll make it feel like you're getting better registration. And they're actually looking at the netcode and some of the ways that weapons felt unreliable, right? So when you would quickly aim, or you maybe start shooting hip fire and then zoom down or aim down sights, a lot of those had some issues. So they're looking to fix a lot of that with this patch. So hopefully some of the netcode fixes and everything else will make the game feel a little bit smoother and a little bit more reliable, right? So when you have that engagement, it'll be a little more predictable, right? And I think that's what we've all been looking for. We want to make sure that we have predictable bullet impacts. If the gun is supposed to take 4 shots to kill and you get 4 shots on center mass, that person should drop. Hopefully that's the way we're leaning. Now, do you hear what I hear? Is that jingle bells? Is that footsteps? Is that a tank? No, we don't hear anything except for audio bugs, and they're addressing that with this update. They're going to be doing a massive audio overhaul, which has been long needed. They're going to be improving combat readability, which is funny because we're not supposed to be listening, not seeing, but clearer footsteps, more movement cues, more reliable armor breaking feedback for those of you that play RedSec, and just overall a bunch of tuning across gameplay sounds just to make it so it's easier to know what's going on. We're talking a wide range of audio improvements, right? You'll be able to locate enemies faster, you'll be able to tell what direction they're firing from, where they're coming from, and I think this is a much needed change, and it's a huge step towards more reliable and predictable sound across the game, and I think that is the main impact of this patch. They want more predictability. Now, you can't talk about audio without going over the footsteps situation, right? Everyone's saying, look, I can hear my friendly teammates as clear as day, but I can't hear an enemy 3 foot away from me. I can't hear those footsteps. And it looks like they're making a lot of changes in this update to move towards the direction of making enemy footsteps a little bit clearer, right? So they're reducing all the dampening, right? So the damage noises, the low health state, the heartbeat, game notifications, all of it. But a piece that really stood out to me in this update is that they actually removed the limitations to maximum number of close-range enemy audio sources, which means if there were a bunch of enemies around you, you couldn't hear them all. There were limitations to how many would actually be projected into the game. So I really hope that this brings that balance pass, which allows us to hear the enemies a little bit better, which I think overall is going to be a massive improvement for a lot of players in Battlefield 6. Do you like battle passes? Well, EA and DICE, in their infinite wisdom, they think you really like battle passes, to the point where they're adding content in the form of a battle pass, right? So let me just recap. We have the Season 1 battle pass with the pro tier upgrade, right? The 6 individual trees. We have the California Resistance battle pass, which had some content towards the end there with the DB12. And now we're getting the Winter Offensive battle pass, which will have the ice pick and other contents. It really does feel like this is the only method that they're able to add content into Battlefield 6. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. But personally, I'm getting a little tired of it. Now brace yourself, there are also some updates coming to some game modes. Breakthrough and Rush are getting some big changes, and I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, they're nerfing defenders, but honestly, this is a much needed change. So they're working on the layouts for multiple maps. They're trying to improve the attacker and defender balance, and how they're going to do this is by adjusting vehicle distribution and changing the points of attack. So honestly, I think this is very much needed. There's many times where you join a match, and this leads me to my second point, where they're also working on less end of game matchmaking, right? But a lot of times you're playing Breakthrough, Rush, you're on attack, it's a slog fest, right? A lot of people quit, and that leads to a lot of single players or duos joining in at the end of a match and then just quitting out, which no one enjoys. So by making this more balanced, it's also going to have a direct impact on the matchmaking quality. So I'm very much looking forward to see how this plays out when it drops on Tuesday. So with all those breakthrough changes, you have to then adjust all the vehicle spawns on the maps. So Manhattan Bridge, they removed defender vehicles in Sector 2 and 3, and they added a vehicle in Sector 3 for the attackers. On Maroc Valley, this is one of the biggest changes of all of them. They removed all defender vehicles in all sectors. That's it. No more vehicles for defenders, so you're probably going to see a bunch more engineers. They adjusted the attacker vehicles, so they got a vehicle in every single sector. New Sobek was just some balancing back and forth there. Operation Firestorm, again, balancing between attack and defense. Nothing crazy. Liberation Peak, this is a pretty big change. Sector 3, they removed the defender tank. I think that's going to be really solid for making that push, just because it's really hard to push when you have a tank there that can just camp and sit and just push everyone back. Siege of Cairo, they add an additional tank in Sector 1 and 3. Don't know if that's necessary, but we'll see how that is for the attackers. And they made other changes in regards to capture volumes on Empire State. Now look, there are a metric shit ton of updates, changes, and fixes coming in this patch, and so I'll have it linked in the description below for you to take a full perusal through that list. If I was to spend this video going through all of them, we'd be here for hours, so make sure you check that link out and read it for yourself. And as always, if you have any feedback or you enjoyed the content or you want to provide your 2 cents, I'm always open to it. Make sure to leave some comments down below, and remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.